sir.
Okay, good. Um, it gives me immense pleasure to be with you all today here. First of all, I would like to thank the Dean Madam, Principal Sir, and Professor Kavimani Sir for inviting me. And I'm going to talk about the fate war. You may be wondering, what is this fate war? This is not like a world war. This is fate war, which we are doing for last 5-6 decades. Just see the image I have posted here in this first slide. This is the cover page of magazine. This is a popular magazine internationally, which was published in different time periods. The first one shows the one in 1961. The images of Professor Ansel Keys. He was a physiologist. He is the first one to postulate the theory of dietary fat and its risk for heart disease. And the middle one, it says cholesterol is bad for health. It was published in 1984. And the last one is the recent cover page of the Time magazine. It says eat butter. Why this is totally upside down now? Why the opinion has changed now? We will see all those events and evidences which happened all these years in this presentation. So let's begin with what happened in the beginning of fat war. You know that this is Professor Ansel Keys. He's a physiologist who's the first one to link dietary fat with cardiovascular diseases. He actually had a small study in 1947. In this study, he linked the dietary fat and cardiovascular disease. And he postulated a hypothesis that the dietary fat increases our blood cholesterol, which leads to atherosclerosis and finally cardiovascular disease. And also he found blood pressure, blood cholesterol level, and cigarette smoking also as one of the risk factors. But his publication was largely unnoticed for 10 years. In 1957, there was one biostatistician. He criticized this Ansel Keys paper and he published that criticism. And he told that this Professor Ansel Keys, he just took only the data from 6 countries, even though he had a data of 22 countries. And this statistician, he analyzed all the data available and he found that when you analyze all the data, the association between fat intake and the cardiovascular disease decreased. And also he found that this association was not specific to fat. When he replaced the fat with animal protein, he found that association. So it was not specific. But unfortunately, this criticism also was not noticed that time. So what happened after that? In 1955, the then US President Eisenhower had a heart attack and he was hospitalized. At that time, it became a hot topic in the country and everyone started talking about cardiovascular disease. So the US government also started a survey in the US to see the impact of cardiovascular disease, and they found that more than 50% of death was coming from cardiovascular disease in that year. So the federal government started initiating a lot of studies to see what's happening with cardiovascular disease and the people. So this Professor Ansel Keys, he utilized that opportunity and he started a very big multinational study called 7-country study in 1956. So he was able to link a low fat diet with lower risk of heart disease. Also, he found that the risk and rates of heart attack and stroke correlated directly and independently with the level of total serum cholesterol. At that time, they didn't go into LDL levels, it was total serum cholesterol. So following the publication of the data from 7-country study, the United States government has given a recommendation through American Heart Association in 1961 for all the Americans to cut down their total fat intake, that is saturated fat intake. And also they further advised people to decrease the fat for weight loss as well, because they assumed replacing the high calorie fat with low calorie carbohydrate will lead to a less consumption of calorie, because you have the carbohydrate 4 calories and fat 1 gram 9 calories. So they assume that if you replace the high calorie fat with low calorie carb, it will lead to weight loss. But this also met with a lot of criticism from the scientific community. And this popular 7 country studies had a very severe criticism. And they even told that the data from 22 countries were not used for the analysis of that publication. They used only 7 countries' data. They ignored data from France, which traditionally has a high saturated fat diet and have a lower heart disease rate. And they told this is purposefully excluded. And there was a fasting going on in the country Greece at that time when they were doing data collection. So the data was with artificially low saturated fat intake at the time. Even they were accused of ignoring the data from sugar consumption, because people try to see that there was a high correlation between sugar consumption and cardiovascular events, which was more than the saturated fat. But Ansel Keys and his team, they came up with a strong response in that time in 1971, and they published their responses in the paper. And they analyzed the sugar data, and they found that there was no evidence to support the sugar has increased mortality rate in cardiovascular disease than the saturated fat. So till 1996, there was no further development in this front. And in 1996, Professor Dr. Walter Willett, he was the then head of Department of Nutrition at Harvard School of Public Health. He found evidence against this diet postulated by Professor Ansel Keys. And he tried to publish this data in journals in the US, but he was not able to, because that time there was a strong belief that the diet heart hypothesis worked. Nobody was willing to publish that paper. Finally, he was able to publish the paper in UK, the British Medical Journal, which agreed to publish this. And this paper said that the data did not support the association between saturated fat intake and risk of coronary heart disease, as supported by the international comparisons. And it triggered intense debate among the scientific community, and now the focus shifted to saturated fats. And this is another meta-analysis. There were a lot of cohort studies and randomized controlled trials in between 1996 and 2010 when this meta-analysis was published. This was one of the landmark meta-analysis which evaluated the cohort studies of association between saturated fat and cardiovascular disease. And this study found that there was no significant evidence for concluding that dietary saturated fat is associated with an increased risk of coronary heart disease or cardiovascular disease. So this evidence was very strong. And this is another publication from United States popular cohort, which is called as National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. This was a cohort started in 1971 with 13,000 people, and in 2005 and 6 with 4,300 people. So they followed this cohort for more than 25 years, and they published the data in several publications. Of course, this was about the carbohydrate, fat, and protein intake, and the BMI, or the obesity, you can say. And they found that the prevalence of obesity increased from 11.9% to 33.4, which is almost 3 times in men, and in women it was 16.6 to 36.5. At the same time, the change in dietary composition, you can see here, the carbohydrates increased from 44 to 48%, which is 4%, and there was a decrease of fat from 36.6 to 33.7, which is almost 3%, and there was a decrease in protein 1%. So you can say that because there was low fat diet recommendations, people started decreasing their fat composition in their diet. So this led to a decrease of almost 3% of fat and 1% of protein, which lead to increased consumption of carbohydrate by 4%. But unfortunately, just this 4% increase in carbohydrates lead to almost 2 to 3 times increase in obesity. So following all these evidences, the US dietary guidelines, which was released in 2015, they actually release every 5 years. And this one we are talking about was released in 2015. So they made major 3 changes in their guidelines following all those evidences, which was to limit the daily sugar intake to 10%. And they removed the restrictions on total percentage of calories from fat per day, which was 30% before. Now they removed it. They also removed the restriction on total daily cholesterol intake, which was 300 milligram per day. Now this limit has been removed by the guidelines. But it is not that straightforward. There were a lot of things inside if you see a little bit closely. Even though they removed the restriction of dietary cholesterol intake per day, that is 300 milligram per day, which was there before, now they removed in the 2015 guidelines. They still specify that you should eat as little as dietary cholesterol as possible. But if you see the scientific report of the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, actually this is the committee which reviews all the scientific evidence and makes recommendations to the Dietary Guidelines Committee. So if you see the scientific report of this advisory committee, it says the available evidence shows no appreciable relationship between consumption of dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol. So whatever you consume in the diet is not going to translate in your serum cholesterol. And this was consistent with the other American Heart and Cardiology Associations. So they concluded that cholesterol is not a nutrient of concern for overconsumption. But unfortunately, the guidelines does not reflect that. They still say you should eat as little as possible. There is no scientific basis for this. Therefore, there were a lot of criticisms against these US guidelines. And they say that the advisory committee recommended reducing consumption of sugary drinks and processed red meats. But actually, what these guidelines said, instead of sugary drinks, they told you to limit sugar, and instead of red meat, they told us to limit saturated fat, and instead of processed food, they told to limit sodium. Following this criticism, there was another criticism published in the blog of School of Public Health in Harvard University. This is a very strongly worded criticism. They told there is influence of meat industry and soda industry in the guidelines. And they told even they fail to represent the best available scientific evidence in their guidelines. And another criticism which was more in depth in scientific, and this was published in BMJ the same year, and it is a very detailed criticism of US dietary guidelines. It said that it omitted important evidences available that time. This was one of the largest nutrition trial in the history, which included 49,000 people. And that study found that there were no benefits of low-fat diet on incidence of fatal and non-fatal coronary heart disease, as well as total cardiovascular diseases, including stroke. This was published in 2006, and there was no benefit of low-fat diet. And there was a further follow-up published last year, which also found no benefit of low-fat diet. But this was omitted by the Dietary Guidelines Committee. And also they ignored three major meta-analyses which concluded that the saturated fats did not increase the cardiovascular mortality. I have given those three references here. These were not considered by the Dietary Guidelines Committee. They included two other meta-analyses which had mixed results. That means the saturated fats had more atherogenic effect than the polyunsaturated fat, but less atherogenic than carbohydrates or monounsaturated fat. So with this mixed result, they concluded that the link between saturated fat to cardiovascular disease is strong. It is quite strange. And they didn't review any data on low carb diets. They said the reason very few studies available, but unfortunately we had that time itself 9 pilot studies, 11 case studies, 19 observational and 74 randomized control trials data available for them to review. Even then they didn't review. And there was one landmark meta-analysis paper published before the dietary guidelines published. They ignored that also. So there were a lot of criticisms saying that there is influence of industry people in this committee. And the reason for that is the committee members need not disclose any conflict of interest according to their statutory requirements. And members had linked with refined oil and soda industries as well as the meat industries, and they had a funding from those industries around 40% with the people who involved in the review of the literature for the dietary guidelines. So all these criticisms lead to US congressional hearing, and then they decided to overhaul the entire process of establishing dietary guidelines. So leave that, okay, what happened with the dietary guidelines is happened. They are going to revise it now. But what actually is with the scientific evidence? The evidences show that if you replace saturated fat with carbohydrate, it will not decrease the risk of cardiovascular disease. But if you replace saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat, it may be beneficial. There may be some benefit. So most of the guidelines now recommend this replacement of saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat. But let's see the evidences ourselves. What are the evidences suggest? This is one of the studies which was conducted in 1968, and the data was not analyzed that time. The study was called as Minnesota Coronary Experiment. So unfortunately, that time they didn't analyze the data completely. So after all these diet heart hypotheses and controversies, scientists, they wanted to look back and see whether we can do something with this data. So they retrieved the data from the house of that scientist who conducted that study. They reanalyzed all the data, and they found that replacement of saturated fat in diet with linoleic acid lowers the serum cholesterol, but it does not support the hypothesis that this translates to a lower risk of death from coronary heart disease. So you can lower the serum cholesterol by using a polyunsaturated fatty acid, which is linoleic acid, but you are not able to decrease the risk of death from coronary heart disease. You see another evidence which was published in 2014. This is one of the landmark meta-analysis which investigated the supplementary fatty acids with coronary heart disease. They found that the risk for heart disease with saturated fat, no, there is no risk here with saturated fat. For monounsaturated fat, no risk. But with omega-3 fatty acids, there was a protection. You can see here this relative risk is less than 1, and you can see that there is a beneficial effect of long chain omega-3 fatty acids. This is polyunsaturated fatty acid. And if you see the omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acid, there is no benefit again. And they found a very high risk with trans fatty acids. This is nothing but hydrogenated vegetable oils which contain the trans fatty acids, which we use here we call the vanaspati, which is containing these trans fatty acids. And actually these results are from observational studies. They analyzed all the randomized control trials, and they found that using this linoleic acid, which is monounsaturated, there is no benefit of any lowering risk or higher mortality. And if you see the long chain omega-3, again no benefit. You have seen benefit here in observational, but in randomized control trial there was no benefit at all with omega-3 and both omega-6. So this study concluded that against the guidelines which say that if you replace saturated fat with unsaturated fat, it will benefit you by decreasing your risk of cardiovascular disease. But this study concluded against that. This is another meta-analysis, and this study also they have done evaluation of recovered data from an old study. The study was called as Sydney Diet Heart Study. In this study also they didn't analyze the data at that time, so they recovered the data. The study was originally conducted in 1966, and they re-evaluated the data, and they found that the intervention group had a higher mortality than the controls. And this study concluded substituting this dietary linoleic acid with saturated fat. Actually, they are replacing saturated fat with this polyunsaturated fat, but actually it increased the rate of death from all cause as well as coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease. So here you can see there is no benefit. Not only there is no benefit, but there is an increased risk of death. And also they added this evidence to the meta-analysis, updated their meta-analysis, and so that there is no evidence of benefit, cardiovascular benefit, by adding this linoleic acid, this polyunsaturated fatty acid. So after this, all evidences which came against the diet heart hypothesis postulated by Professor Ansel Keys, this team again jumped back and they started reassuring the people their study is still valid, and they responded to criticism in a very detailed way, and they published that in a recent paper in 2017. They told that the France did not have reliable data. That's the reason they didn't include the data from France. Still, it is subjective. What kind of reliability they were looking for, I don't know. And they told they were aware of the fasting Greece at the time of data collection, because at that time they had artificially low-fat diet in Greece. And also they did not hide any data related to sugar. And they reanalyzed that data and they found that there was no correlation between sugar and heart disease after adjustment for saturated fat. And also they published a detailed white paper. All the investigators who involved in this 7-country study, they combined all the evidences they collected, the responses to the criticism, all conclusions, commentaries, everything they combined together and made a white paper to reassure the entire scientific community that their study is still valid and their hypothesis of diet heart hypothesis is still valid. But if we see the evidences, and some of the evidences still support diet heart hypothesis, and this is meta-analysis from Cochrane. It said that there was a small but an important, significant reduction of cardiovascular disease if you reduce your saturated fat intake. But they found that if you replace saturated fat with the polyunsaturated fat, it is beneficial. But if you replace saturated fat with carbohydrate, it is not. And also there is only one trial was there with the replacement of monounsaturated fat, so they are not able to conclude with that. And this is meta-analysis of randomized control trial, which has investigated increasing polyunsaturated fat in place of saturated fat. And they concluded there was an overall reduction of 19% of risk. And there was a 10% reduced risk of coronary heart disease for every 5% increased consumption of polyunsaturated fat in place of saturated fat. So this study concluded if you consume polyunsaturated fat in place of saturated fat, it will reduce coronary heart disease. And this is yet another evidence. This is also a meta-analysis of prospective cohort studies. And here they have investigated specifically this linoleic acid, which is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, omega-6 acid. They said that it was associated with a 15% lower risk of CHD events. And also there was a 21% lower risk of death from CHD events. So for every 5% increment in this fatty acid in place of saturated fat, there was a 9% lower risk of CHD and 13% lower risk of death from CHD. So this study concluded that the dietary polyunsaturated fatty acid intake in terms of linoleic acid is inversely associated with CHD risk in a dose-dependent manner. So this is another prospective study, not a meta-analysis. This is a prospective cohort study which included more than 53,000 men and women, and they had free of myocardial infarction at baseline. And they tried to see the effect of carbohydrates as well as saturated fatty acids in the risk of myocardial infarction. And they found that there was a non-significant inverse association between substitution of carbohydrates, the low glycemic index values. You have to see very importantly, this is low glycemic carbohydrate they are using to replace the saturated fat. And also it's non-significant. I don't know why we should not discuss anything which is not significant, but they try to promote this here. Anyway, we can conclude that there was some benefit from replacing saturated fat with carbohydrates of low glycemic index values. But they found a significant positive association between substitution of carbohydrates with high glycemic values for saturated fat. So if you replace your saturated fat in the diet with carbohydrates of high glycemic index, it's going to increase the risk of myocardial infarction. At the same time, they couldn't find any association between carbohydrates with medium glycemic index values when they were using it for replacing saturated fat. So they conclude that if you replace saturated fat with carbohydrates of low glycemic, it's going to be beneficial in decreasing the risk of myocardial infarction. But if you use carbohydrates with high glycemic index to replace saturated fat in the diet, it will be associated with an increased risk of myocardial infarction. This is one of the landmark study which was published in 2017 in Lancet. It's a very large multinational study conducted in 18 countries. followed up patients around 135,000 individuals for more than 7 years, and they found that the high carbohydrate intake associated with higher risk of total mortality, whereas the total fat and individual types of fat, which is polyunsaturated or monounsaturated fat, were related to lower total mortality. Actually, there was a lowering of risk here with the fat consumption when you compare with high carbohydrate. They also further found that total fat as well as different types of fat not associated with cardiovascular disease or any of cardiovascular mortality. At the same time, when you have a saturated fat intake, it had an inverse association with stroke. That means it's protecting people from stroke when you have a higher saturated fat consumption. They even recommended to change all the global dietary guidelines in accordance. This is another cohort study which was published very recently last year, related the fatty acid intake and risk of cardiovascular disease. They found that it is the higher intake of dietary trans fatty acids, which are hydrogenated fatty oils, associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, and not any other fatty acids. You see, the total fat or monounsaturated fatty acid or saturated fatty acid or even polyunsaturated fatty acid does not have any association between the risk of cardiovascular disease. So they concluded the risk is coming only from the trans fatty acids or hydrogenated fatty acids. So why so much of contradiction here? If you see all the evidences which are coming from a very credible source, most of them are meta-analysis and randomized control trial, long prospective cohort studies, but we are getting so much of results on either side. Why so much contradiction here? Because we assume that the dietary fat contributes to the increased blood cholesterol level, which is LDL, and it's going to be atherogenic, and because of that we are getting higher cardiovascular disease. This is the diet hot hypothesis postulated. But is that true? LDL is not homogeneous. LDL has some fractions if you see their particle size and density. And there are two type of LDL you can divide according to their size and density. Smaller LDL particles which are dense and are more atherogenic than the larger LDL particles which are fluffy. And these smaller LDL particles have no cholesterol unfortunately in them, and this is increased by high carbohydrate. So when you have high carbohydrate diet, it increases the smaller LDL, which is more atherogenic. At the same time, the larger LDL, which is rich with cholesterol, is increased by saturated fat. At the same time, you should have a low carb diet combined with saturated fat, increases the larger LDL, larger and fluffy, low dense LDL, which is not at all atherogenic. So this could be the reason behind all these results coming from either benefit or increased mortality or no association. You are getting these kind of results. So we can say that the saturated fat intake correlates to blood LDL level because it increases the LDL level, but it may not contribute to the cardiovascular events because there is a factor contributed by carbohydrates also to the LDL. And also most of the studies ignore the effect of the diet on triglycerides and HDL, which are also one of the lipid biomarkers involved in the risk. And you can say that the elevated triglycerides or lower HDL also contribute to the increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The ratio, triglyceride to HDL ratio, predicts cardiovascular diseases independently of LDL. So most of the studies have ignored this factor at all. And also to add to that, the high fat diet decreases triglyceride and increases HDL, which is beneficial for cardiovascular disease. This may be one of the factors. And also at the same time, high carb diets increase triglycerides and decrease HDL, which contributes to the risk of cardiovascular disease. And also we have a lot of problems which are specific to the diet studies at the same time. And we cannot have a placebo in any of the diet studies and because of the nature. Therefore, we cannot have a double-blind study design with diet studies, and which will be less conclusive data. And also for, if you see the energy balance, our diet is composed of three major macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So if you decrease one component, automatically the other component will increase. So if you are going to study decreasing low fat, at the same time you are increasing the carbohydrates, so the effect you are seeing is the combination of both. You cannot single out one factor. So it's very difficult to adjust this variation here. And also all the diet studies have to rely on the patient reported food intake. Even though we have now internationally accepted and valid instruments to collect the food intake from patients, like the food frequency questionnaires or the food diaries, or 24 hours recall, 3-day recall, or 7-day recall methods, but still we have to rely on the patient's memory and his feedback on what he took. So there could be some problem with the validity of data in this. And also if the compliance, especially in long term for diets, because all these studies which follow the patients for years, and there will be a real problem with the compliance for all these studies. So nobody has taken this compliance into account. And also our food habits change with culture and lifestyle. Each community or each place has its own cuisine, and the food and the dietary habits change with time. So these are all the things which can affect the outcome. So if you see the factors we have now on the fat side, if you reduce the total fat, there is no benefit. But if you reduce the saturated fats with polyunsaturated fat, there are some benefits. Yes, there are some studies for that there is benefit. At the same time, if you replace saturated fat with monounsaturated fat, we don't have any evidence, it's uncertain. At the same time, if you take higher intake of trans fats, there is a higher risk, no doubt about that. So we can say that it is the fat quality, what type of fat you are taking. Instead of concentrating on fat quantity, you should focus on fat quality, what type of fat you are taking. You see the carb side, if you replace the saturated fat with carbohydrate, there is no benefit. So people are trying to decrease their saturated fat intake, at the same time they are increasing their carbohydrate, and they are not benefited. At the same time, if you are replacing saturated fat with low glycemic index carbohydrate, there is a benefit, cardiovascular benefit. And high glycemic carbohydrate increases triglycerides and reduces HDL cholesterol, so which independently increases your risk for cardiovascular disease. So this is one of the major risk factors with carbohydrate diets. So far, what is our understanding of the diet halt hypothesis, the earlier understanding and our current understanding? So the original hypothesis says here the dietary fat contributes to the blood cholesterol level, which contributes to the coronary heart disease. So what we have done with that? So we decreased our saturated fat intake and increased our polyunsaturated fat intake, which lead to improvement in our LDL and HDL and a decrease of coronary heart disease. But it's not that simple. So now our current understanding goes even more complex. So it focuses on food and dietary patterns, which is now decreased saturated fat as before, and we are increasing our polyunsaturated fat. At the same time, we are focusing on carbohydrates now. There should be no compensatory increase in the carbohydrates when you are decreasing your saturated fat. So your fat consumption should remain same. Only thing is you are replacing your saturated fat with your polyunsaturated fat. But if you try to decrease the overall fat, it will lead to an increase of carbohydrate, and you will not get any benefit of low fat diet. At the same time, we are not only looking into LDL cholesterol now, there are so many other lipid biomarkers available like HDL and non-HDL cholesterol, and we have a ratio to cholesterol to HDL, triglyceride to HDL ratios, apolipoproteins, and even now we are looking into LDL size, even though this is not clinically available yet. There are some labs which still do the small and large LDL fractions. At the same time, there are a lot of non-lipid factors which we have to take into account, which are also involved in the coronary heart diseases. which are like blood pressure, thrombosis, the endothelial inflammation, oxidative stress, and even insulin resistance also involved in the cardiovascular risk. And gut microbiome, which is coming up very recently, and a lot of research is still going on in what are the factors contribute other than the diet and lipid in coronary heart disease. So to summarize with all the evidences and facts, we can say that replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat is beneficial, and you have to avoid all trans fats, no doubt about that. And high carb diets increase cardiovascular disease. So far, we believe that it's only the fat which was increasing this cardiovascular risk, but it is actually the high carb diet which increases the cardiovascular risks. And if you are going to replace your fat with carbohydrates, you should replace with low glycemic index carbohydrates, not with high glycemic index carbohydrates. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir, for giving your valuable insights on the topic fat war. Now I request Mr. Jajna Gopi Sudhir Kumar to present the questions raised by audience to Dr. Mohammad Rafullah sir.
Good morning, sir. So I feel privileged to take this opportunity on behalf of the present international webinar series, The Fat War. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammad Rafiullah, sir, for an interesting, informative talk on today's session. Your knowledge enlightening the minds of budding pharma professional as well as all the participants today, sir. Let us move on the Q&A session, sir. We received some of the questions from the participant in chat box from that, sir. Sir, are you audible, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Sir, in high fat diet induced, the first question is, sir, high fat diet induced diabetes is one of the model for screening of anti-diabetic activities, sir. While performing this method, is there any CVD complication, cardiovascular disease complication? If yes, how can you correlate it, sir? In preclinical studies, sir.
Actually, in animal studies, it's totally different because the diet composition is different. They
Yes.
are using a 55% high-fat diet to induce insulin resistance.
Yes.
So that insulin resistance can lead to cardiovascular disease. But for any cardiovascular disease, you need to have a very long-term follow-up. But usually studies will finish, I think, in weeks. So you can't see any cardiovascular effects so soon.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Yes. So one more question, sir. What is the glycemic index, sir? From one of the participants, Abdul Rahman.
Yeah, it actually represents the carbohydrate content of the food. How much glucose it can increase. If you see glycemic index 80% means if you consume 100 grams of that food, you will have a carbohydrate load of 80 grams. So high glycemic means it has high carb content. It will increase your glucose levels high.
Okay, sir. So, okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, one more question, sir. What are the effects of cookies and fat food on cardiovascular diseases, sir?
Actually, cookies have hydrogenated trans fats. In fact, most of the bakery items have hydrogenated fats in the form of margarine or vanaspati. You can read the label claims. You can see that the trans fat. So definitely, consumption of trans fat will increase the cardiovascular risk. No doubt about that.
So one more question, sir. Thank you, sir. One more question, sir. So which foods, sir?
Yes, please.
Which foods contain low glucose carbohydrates, sir?
Actually, there is a list of, maybe you can find in several websites. There is a list of low glycemic food. Even Harvard, they have a blog published, I think, full list of food which containing low glycemic index, I think you can refer to websites.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir,
A very big list.
sir, one more question, sir. Is there risk of inducing glucosaturated fatty acids by substancing trans fatty acids, sir?
Sorry.
Sir, if there is any risk of inducing glucogenesis if we consume polyunsaturated fatty acids by substituting trans fatty acids.
Yeah, if you consume polyunsaturated fatty acid, it's mostly beneficial. But I don't know what is its connection to gluconeogenesis.
Okay, sir. Sir, the last but one question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in preclinical studies, is there any precautions to be taken while planning the diet-induced studies, sir? Diet-induced disease studies.
No, actually, preclinical studies are well validated and specific models. So I don't think any problems with that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for session, sir. Over to the anchor.
Thank you, Sudhir, sir. Now I request
Thank you, ma'am.
Professor Dr. S. Kavimani, Professor and Head, Department of Pharmacology, College of Pharmacy, to share his views regarding the webinar.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Mohammed Rafiullah for accepting my invitation. The current situation existing over the world about fat and its complications, by quoting the recommendations of American Heart Association, US Dietary Guidelines 2015, were elaborately discussed by the speaker. He had taken the presentation materials from British medical journals, British Journal of Nutrition, Annals of Internal Medicines, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, Lancet, and Lipid Health Diseases, which is not freely accessible by ordinary researchers. The incidences of myocardial infarction is more in pure vegetarian people when compared with non-vegetarian, because marine and related products of omega-3 fatty acids. The role of omega-3 fatty acids is elaborately discussed by Dr. Mohammed Rafiullah. Actually, he correlated between diabetes, obesity, saturated fat with atherosclerosis. The title shows it is a war. The war is between the fat side and the carbohydrate side, and also he elaborately explained it. For each and every slides had the references in the footnote. So we have to learn many things. Our students has to learn many things from Dr. Mohammed Rafiullah, how to present a thesis, how to prepare a PowerPoint. And he divided the LDL into two categories. One is small LDL and large LDL, and atherogenic index, how it depends upon the size of the LDL, etc. Definitely, the presentation is very much useful for our students and also our staff members. So once again, I thank Dr. Mohammed Rafiullah for accepting my invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. E. Selvakumari to present the report on today's webcast series.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my assigned task to present the compiled report of the registered participants for the Global Coma e-learning webcast series 1 on the topic the fat war by an eminent speaker, Dr. Mohammed Rafiullah. For today's webinar series 1, the registered participants are 1,037 members across 5 countries that includes India, Nigeria, Singapore, Malaysia, and Iran. In India, the registered participants are from 15 states. Among 15 states, maximum participants are from the state of Tamil Nadu. The total number of various institutions and colleges are 70. The total number of students are 719, 69.3%. Research scholars, 26, 2.5%. Professors, 56, 5.4%. Associate professors, 154, 15%. And lecturers, 21, 2%. The various disciplines of the registered participants are pharmacy, life sciences that includes botany and biotechnology, obstetrics and gynecology, information technology, clinical nutrients and dietetics, community health sciences, home science, physiotherapy, and pure and applied chemistry. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we are coming to the end of session. I request Dr. V. Vimalaravi, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacology, College of Pharmacy, to deliver the word of thanks.
Greetings to one and all. I take this opportunity to thank our respected Dean Madam, Dr. S. Jayanti, for her constant encouragement and support in our academic endeavors. Also, I would like to acknowledge with a special note of appreciation and gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Mohammad Rafiullah, for his enlightening talk on the fat war. It's the need of the hour, sir. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. V. Gopal, Principal and Academic Registrar, for convening the webinar, and Dr. S. Kavimani, Professor and HOD of Pharmacology, for chairing the session, and also all the faculty, staff, students, and delegates who has attended the webinar. Further, I would like to appreciate and thank the webinar technical team, namely Mr. J.K. Sudhir Kumar, Dr. E. Selva Kumari, Dr. Annapurna Vadivelu, Dr. I. Nurul Alam, and Mr. K. Dinesh Babu for their technical and logistic support. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. A gentle reminder to all the participants, e-certificates will be provided to all the registered participants after submission of their feedback form, and the link for submission of feedback is attached in the YouTube chat box. We will meet you soon on July 13 at 12 a.m. for our next international webinar on the topic Nature-Based Multifunctional Drug Delivery Systems by Dr. Murali Kumaraswamy from Israel Institute of Technology, Israel. And the link for registration to next webinar is given in the YouTube chat box and screen. Thank you all and have a nice day. Thank you.